All right, we're back on Morning Line. Our guest is malpractice attorney here in Middle Tennessee, Clint Kelly, and we can take your phone calls. Some lines open, 737-7587. If you have a question about a case or the law or anything like that, give us a holler. We just took a couple calls here, and Clint's going to get back in touch with one of them. What's always interesting talking to him is some of the cases he sees, which, frankly, on occasion horrify me. The ones that you've talked about recently, and you keep seeing them, is when they operate on the wrong body part. And without going into too much detail, you did say you have another case now that you're looking at of that same thing, since we've last talked.
Right. You remember I've told you, I think it was last year, a couple years ago maybe, that my theory was that because of the way medical practice is set up, where we're going with healthcare, that you were going to see more and more cases of physicians operating on the wrong patient or operating on the wrong body part, which when I started practicing 26 years ago, never had those cases. I may have only had one in my career for 20 years. And then all of a sudden, bam, 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 year after year, I was getting them. And what I've realized is I think a real reasonable explanation for it. Doctors are jamming, and hospitals, not just thought, are jamming so many patients into a schedule. We're all being like a herd of cattle. We're all being rushed into assembly line, having work done, and the number of patients, the volume is increased while the time spent with each patient is decreased. So the margin of error has continued to decrease. And so in the rush to get more patients operated on, so the hospital can make more money and the doctors can make more money, mistakes are being made. And one of the more common mistakes is they're not identifying the right patient for the right surgery, or they're not identifying what part of the body they're supposed to work on, and they're operating on the wrong body part, which is, I mean, it's inexcusable.
I was going to say, but that's a big, I mean, I can see maybe some lesser little mistakes that happen because they're rushing all the time. But we're operating on the wrong, taking out the wrong kidney, or what are the ones you're looking at now?
Well, you know, we had the wrong baby.
Who had
her tongue out, had the tongue surgery. We had that case. I've had a case where a doctor operated on the wrong elbow. I've had a case where a doctor took out the wrong ovary. I've had a case where, I've had a case where a doctor operated on the wrong hand. I mean, it's becoming more common because of what I told you, and there's no excuse for it because doctors and nurses are supposed to do what's called a timeout procedure. It's very simple. Before you work on the patient, you identify the patient, the body part that's to be worked on, you look at the paperwork to make sure that you've got signed informed consent, and you also make sure you recognize who the patient is. And if you do those four things, you are not going to operate on the wrong body part. The problem is, these doctors and hospitals are getting in such a rush to get these jobs done that they're shortcutting the timeout procedure, and that's when these mistakes are being made.
And those mistakes are pretty indefensible? Or will they try? There is no. So when it happens, that's one, for instance, that you usually end up settling because they're not going to want to go to trial.
That is correct.
Okay, but you're not going to settle unless you can feel you're getting what's fair for your clients, obviously. And so, I mean, if they don't offer what you think's fair, you say, well, it's too bad we're not settling, we're going to trial.
I take a tougher stand in those cases because they are indefensible and because they're inexcusable. And in fact, in some situations, if it's bad enough, I'll sue for punitive damages because that doctor needs to be punished. It really does. That's the only way that you're going to make absolutely certain that mistake doesn't happen again.
That's the key.
So many of them will say, well, you know, I just made a mistake. It's a human error, whatever. There's some mistakes that are so bad that you have to punish that person so that they don't make that mistake again. It has to cost them money. It's, you know, did you remember when you were a kid, there were some situations or mistakes you made where you get scolded?
Sure.
You know, and I'm 51, there were some where I got whipped, okay? And the reason I got whipped was to set the example to make sure I didn't make that mistake again, versus where I got scolded, because there's some infractions that are worse than others. There's some crimes that are worse than others. Well, there's some cases of malpractice, medical mistakes, that are worse than others. And in my judgment, operating on the wrong patient or the wrong body part is top of the list.
Top of the list. I couldn't agree with you more. Let's go next to Johnny. Johnny, good morning. Hi, Johnny.
Yes.
How can we help you, sir?
I have a situation that was very unfortunate for me. I went into the doctor's office. I had nephropathy. They scheduled me an appointment. They run a wire down the left side, and the whole bottom of my foot turned black. They tried to tell me that I stepped on something and burnt my foot. Well, I done treatment for 2 weeks on it. They cut the bottom of my foot off and told me, there was nothing else they could do, that they had to amputate my leg. Well, in the process of this, I developed a blister on my right shin, all the way up my shin. Well, it popped and set up gangrene.
Yeah.
So they had to take that leg. And I was in the hospital for 65 days and developed a bed sore that was 3 to 4 inches deep. They didn't roll me like they were supposed to roll me, first of all. Second of all, I think that this could have been prevented, the amputations, because I was walking. I just had nephropathy, and I need some help.
All right, well, let's see. Let Clint ask you a few questions here.
Is it Johnny? Is that his
Johnny?
name? Johnny, when did this happen? When did you have your first amputation?
September the 1st of last year.
Okay. When did you have your second amputation?
September the 8th.
Okay. So they came basically back to back in the same month.
Yes.
All right. Have you talked to another lawyer?
No, sir. I tried to call Morgan and Morgan. They would not return my calls, and neither would there's another one that advertises on TV. They wouldn't, and I seen y'all on MorningLine this morning. You act like you know what you're doing, so I wanted to give you a call to see what options I have.
Well, I appreciate that. Here's what I want you to do, kind of like Mary did, Johnny. I want you to call my office. The phone number will be up on the screen. It's 615-8000000. That's pretty easy to remember. 800-0000. Ask to speak to Michelle.
Yes.
When
Okay.
you get transferred to Michelle, Johnny, she's going to ask you a whole lot of questions about what happened. You do need to be as specific as you can about the dates of when certain things happen. That'll help me tremendously. And also make sure you identify which hospital you were in, which doctor was caring for you. I got a pretty good idea. I mean, your damages are extraordinarily bad. We just need to try to figure out what got missed here. And then she'll generate a report to me, and I will get back to you as soon as possible and let you know what I think. It'll be confidential. It won't cost you a dime.
Yes, sir. I certainly appreciate it, and I'll call y'all tomorrow. I got a doctor's appointment today. I'm still under wound care.
Wow.
But I refuse to go back to the actual surgeon because I had 2 different surgeons. They both in the same office. One of them operated on the left leg, and the other one operated on the right leg. And now that the surgery's been done, he's moved to North Carolina.
Hey, Johnny, if you don't mind me asking, what hospital did you have these amputations performed?
Centennial Medical Center in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay, and the doctors or the surgeons who were involved, you say they were in the same medical group?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
They were partners.
Okay. Well, you get your wound care, and then you make sure you call. Our office is open till 5 o'clock this afternoon, so you can call today if you want to after your visit. But make sure you call, and make sure you're detailed in what you tell Michelle, and I will get back to you ASAP on this and let you know if you got a case.
How old are you, Johnny?
I'm 55.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you, Johnny, for calling. Well, if you can, then these kind of things can happen. Just from superficially hearing about this. Now, necropathy sounds like he had circulation issues. What's necropathy? Neuropathy. What is neuropathy?
Well, it could be a lot of things. He might be diabetic. He might have needed a wire to increase blood flow down his leg. But let me tell you something, Nick. When someone's been amputated twice and also had a major bed sore or boil, that is the type of major injury that gets a jury to go, whoa.
Okay. Yeah.
And if there's a case, I'm not saying there is, you never know, but if there's a case here, this is the kind of case juries will be fair with patients because the damages are so extraordinary. I mean, Johnny is...
Well, he's been
he's a young
amputated
man.
now. He's only
young.
55.
He's 4 years older than me. He's got a long, long, long way to go. And this is the type of situation I need to look into this, investigate it deeply, and try to figure out if I can help him.
Okay.
I sure hope I can.
Yeah. And this is something where you get hold of all the medical records. You have to, I mean, this is, again, he may have just a very severe circulation problem. The doctors may have tried to do what they could do.
Diabetics, sometimes they'll get what they call diabetic foot, where they'll say you stepped on something, you broke your foot, and that ultimately led to the amputation.
Because it doesn't heal.
Correct. What in my mind made me think that doesn't sound right to me is when they stick a wire down his leg, I'm thinking what was done was some type of vascular procedure. And when you have a vascular procedure, one of the things that can go wrong with it is you can get a blood clot that develops as a result of the procedure. Bleeding, in the vessel, because what they're doing is they're passing a wire through the vessels in your leg to try to increase the blood flow. And when they do that, one of the risks is they may perforate an artery, or they may go too far with it, cause a clot. The clot ultimately leads to a amputation. And one of the things you got to be careful with when you're doing that type of procedure as a vascular surgeon, if you start seeing signs of a darker foot, you better get in there quickly and kill the clot, bust the clot, if you will, because if you wait too long, that foot will die, and then it has to be amputated. When he's talking about gangrene in the other leg,
I was like, wow.
I just wonder why there's no earlier intervention in those situations.
Yeah, because gangrene, that's pretty far along, and you don't hear that often. That's just not, I mean, that's your leg rotting off.
This case has got all kinds of red flags on it, that's all I'm saying.
Worth looking into, one way or the other. All right, did you say we need to take a break? Let's do that. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more of your calls and more of our conversations. Final segment with Clint Kelly right after this.